Joining us on yet another excursion through the stream of consciousness, down the river of tranquility, to fill the lake of life with love.
And good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is another lovely evening with the lovely Lubby and the, I don't know. I was going to... Debonair Jazz. See, that doesn't work. We need a rhyme for that. Anyway, that's for another time. We've got another show put together by Lubby, and you get an honest reaction from me because I have had no time to do any of my research. So this is an open, honest, quick reactions from my point, which is always kind of fun. It's always kind of fun to get those reactions when you don't, oddly enough, when I have had no time to do research and I get stuff thrown at me. I find that kind of fun. I'm weird, so I find that kind of fun. But before we get to that, we get to talk about impotence.
Also known as erectile dysfunction.
They're not necessarily the same thing, though, are they?
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yes, we will in a minute. But before we get there, it's been a bit of a disarray here around these parts. Right now, if you could see our studio, the part you cannot see is a complete mess at the moment because we've changed our studio software, which required some changes. Anyway, and on top of that, Lubby got her kitty.
Yes, I have a 12-week-old domestic short hair, black with green eyes, 12 weeks old, and his name is Ramses, like the pharaoh, Egyptian pharaoh, and he is a people person cat. He always comes up for pets. He purrs a lot. He's rambunctious, and he's decided that Jim's hand is his play toy at night.
Yes, somebody kept me up at night, all night last night. I go to bed late. I work late, so I go to bed 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And as I go to bed, this little guy decides to get up and starts using my hand and my arms or my feet or whatever part of me happens to be sticking out from under the blanket at the moment. And it's California, so it's hot. So a lot of me is sticking out from under the blanket. And I'm his play toy for 2 hours. Yeah, thank you very much.
He just sleeps next to me.
Yeah. And I'd like to explain is how we ended up with a 12-week-old cat when we had talked about this, and you wanted a mature cat, mature rescue cat, and it was a rescue kitty, just to let everybody know. But it was you wanted a mature rescue cat. I wanted a younger cat, 1, 2 years old, maybe 3, somewhere in that range, 1 to 3 years old. You wanted a more mature kitty, and we somehow ended up with a brand new kitten.
My girlfriend sent me a picture of one of the kittens that her son, he's a foster dad for animal outreach rescue of, oh gosh, now I forget it. They work out of PetSmart.
Yeah, somewhere around here, one of the animal outreach around here in Sacramento. It's not really relevant.
Motherlode. Animal outreach with a motherlode. Huzzah! I remembered it.
And so, we ended up with a kitten. I don't understand. So now I
fell in love.
So now we've got another toddler essentially running around the house. It's just smaller. We finally got rid of the toddler and we got another one. I don't understand, but these things happen, I suppose. Hey, we take these things as they come, right? It is what it is. Lubby wants a kitty. She gets a kitty. It's just what it is. All right. So, Lubby, you put together today's show. Maybe I should just slow down and maybe I could talk. You put together today's show. So, what you got for us?
Well, the topic occurred to me, and we haven't discussed it before. Now, we're talking about impotence. We're not talking about one-off and a drunk night, and I've been a party to those. It just doesn't happen, and you give it a lick and a promise and come back to it later, but we're not talking about that. The early warning, we're just going to jump right in.
Uh-huh.
Early warning signs of impotence: high blood pressure,
Okay.
Okay, blood flow to your member is what allows it to get hard, and your blood vessels get damaged due to high blood pressure. So you may have some difficulties.
And we all know high blood pressure often comes not just from bad diet, but from hypertension, so stress. And so stress is often one of those things that is under thought about as potential issues.
Okay, yes. Number 2, no morning wood. It's normal not to get it every day, but if you wake up limp several weeks in a row, it could mean your blood is not flowing as well as it should. Okay, here's an interesting one. Number 3, swollen gums.
That is an interesting one.
The swollen gums can lead to inflammation of your whole body, including blood vessels that help you get hard.
Okay, that's interesting.
Later signs of impotence. For most men, erectile dysfunction doesn't suddenly appear overnight unless they started a medication that can cause it. Instead, it develops slowly over time. If you miss the first ones, you might notice these later ones. Less interest in sex. When your testosterone levels drop, so does your interest in sex.
Well, yeah, okay. Testosterone issues. Okay.
Mood changes, fatigue, weight gain, muscle loss.
Well, these things can mean all kinds of things. I suppose that's part of the problem. Maybe there's an underlying issues, whether physical or psychological, that are, not helping, shall we say.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Changes in erection. There's no hard and fast rule what it comes to look for signs of impotence. This is what sounds kind of frustrating about the whole thing. Any change could be a symptom, whether it's you're not getting hard as you're used to or you aren't able to stay hard for as long as you normally do. So it's very personal.
Yeah.
Sleep problems. When you're not sleeping, this does 2 things that can lead to erectile dysfunction. Lack of sleep leads to lower testosterone levels and higher stress levels. Both of those may reduce your libido.
Yeah. So they have stress and hormones. Yeah. There you go. There's the two. But and sex can be a stress relief. So I suppose there is a fine line there somewhere, right? That between what's relieve, when you get to the part where you're so stressed that it's no longer interesting, rather than you're a little stressed, so you want to, have a little fun to relieve some of it. I suppose there's a fine line there somewhere. How much stress becomes overburdensome. And my guess is that kind of the stress kind of affects both sexes. Interesting enough, we should find out for a future show about, impotence in women, because we talk about it in men, but we don't talk about it in women.
Okay, I'll do research for that for next week.
Yeah, well, hopefully next week or sometime, or maybe we find somebody to come on. Those are interesting. Those are discussions really when we need to bring in professionals and have an interesting discussion where a couple of us, rank amateurs, can ask the kind of the questions that the person on the street wants to ask. But if you're dealing with these things, it's and trust me, no one wants to go to their doctor and tell them, "Hey, I've got a hard time getting a boner." No one wants to tell their doctor that.
40% of men under 40.
And so, it's a hard thing.
It's not like he hears it a lot, apparently.
Well, he probably doesn't hear it enough. It would be, which is a strange thing, right? It's, men don't like to go to the doctor if their arm is falling off. And so you think the man's going to want to go to a doctor to discuss something that personal? It's a hard thing.
Well, in my research, and we've already discussed some of it, high blood pressure, this kind of thing, you can have underlying medical issues that are that impotence is just a symptom of, and some of these health issues can be serious.
Yeah, I know. And trust me, as a man who doesn't like to go to doctors and talk to his doctors about squat, it's I can feel this in a sense. You know, I wouldn't want to go and talk to my doctor about it. I just wouldn't. What would it take for me to do it? I don't know. Something us men are going to have to contemplate, isn't it? Okay, so what do we got next? So
What can you do if your partner? What to do if your partner is impotent? First, most importantly, is do not take his impotence personally. This is not about you.
yeah, no, and we could actually have a discussion. Since my concussion, sex has been much more difficult for us because I get overwhelmed by sensations. Things that should feel good don't. They just become overwhelming. But in a sense, what do you do about that?
We wait for your good days.
Or days when I can manage, when days when there's nothing else going on, when my stresses are low and, and my anxieties are low, and you can kind of cope with the overwhelming nature of it. It's the downside of overwhelming nature when you get your nerve systems crossed, right? When your nervous systems are misinterpreting data, is essentially what happens to me. Instead of interpreting it as pleasure, it interprets it as pain. And so what are you going to do? You wait till the days it's not. Wait till maybe your nerves readjust, relearn paths. How do you know? And how do you go to tell your doctors about this? Which doctor do you talk to? Good Lord. Do you talk to, which doctor do you actually have the discussion with?
Well, you start with your general practitioner.
Well, yeah, but we've already gone there, and then you sent you to the doctor where they put the electrodes and stuff all over your head, and and they go and sit you in there, and they do the brainwave examinations or whatever the hell it was, and it doesn't show anything. Of course, no one's really sure what they're looking for, so it doesn't really surprise me that it doesn't show anything. It may not be in the head; it may be in the neck where stuff is getting misinterpreted. Who knows? For me personally, but it's what I mean. It's a frustrating thing, and if it's frustrating for me, it's frustrating for your partner as well. On two levels. Not only are they personally frustrated because they feel unfulfilled, but then they have to watch someone they love be unfulfilled as well. It's a hard thing for a couple. Yeah, it just is. So where were we?
What to do when your partner, he needs your compassion. Bring your kind heart and compassion to a healing conversation with him and keep talking and probing until you get an idea what it might be. Start with nutrition, no matter what the case.
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you, that's just going to be frustrating.
If it's depression,
well, you should eat better. What?
Get to the root of it. If there's a physical element, go to a highly experienced urologist.
Can I give you all a hint about, this is a woman put this together. If men want a solution from you, they'll ask you. Men are actually a little different than women. We just need your compassion.
Well, that's the next one. Stand by your man.
I mean,
with you by his side, he can figure out how to solve and work around the issue. Yeah, it's just support. That's all that I could do.
And if it's a long-term issue, there's other ways to have a long-term relationship and still be sexually fulfilled. If someone has that high of a sex drive, there's options.
You can do other things. Yes, and we talk about some of them in a little bit.
Okay. All right. So what else you got? That
it? 20 most common causes.
Oh,
first it talks
you
about
love lists. My Lubby
what
loves
is erectile dysfunction. Is it common?
So that's the difference between erectile dysfunction and
35 million men in the U.S. have ED and have asked for medical help. What is the cause of male impotence or erectile dysfunction? From what I got in the articles, they're they're pretty much interchangeable as terms.
Well, but see, erectile dysfunction is if you might have the desire but can't follow through. But impotence may be you can't find the desire.
Well, I think it can be, yes.
And so I think that's fundamentally the difference. I mean,
Okay,
there
here
is
we
some
go.
crossover, but
This says, is erectile dysfunction a sign of impotence? How will I know if I have an ED? Before the physician commands a specific treatment choice, he will wholly look into your medical history to detect situations that manage to male impotence or erectile dysfunction. So it is something that your doctor will. You have to be diagnosed.
yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference, and while there's a lot of overlap, I would assume, the differences can be all the difference, right? I mean, if the difference is desire, what's the leading arm? If you've lost desire because you can't perform, that's a different issue than if you have the desire and can't perform. And so, or if you just don't have any desire but could perform, that kind of thing. So and these are uncomfortable conversations to have with your doctors. I trust me, I know. And, no one wants to have them, but it's important.
I read in one article that it is building the penile muscles, so hand jobs and blow jobs help. So you partners, you got to get busy, support your man.
Yeah, maybe Thursday we'll talk about the medieval sexual practices, or maybe just sexual practices in history. We maybe that's what we should do for Thursdays nights. So, because we haven't actually done that one yet. So, just as a kind of brief philosophical run through history, without a bit of a fun interlude, so to speak. I couldn't help myself. Well, because we can talk about what courtly love was and what we think it is. We've got a whole vastly different. Anyway, that's the whole different discussion. So where were we at? Erectile dysfunction. I'm all over the place today.
Questions to discuss with your doctor. Do you smoke cigarettes? Okay, have you been screened for other medical problems such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart disease, and diabetes? See, you got impotence and erectile or erectile dysfunction can be a symptom of a serious health issue.
Yeah, but your doctors ask those questions every single time you go there nowadays. So I'm not entirely sure you have to ask for it.
No, this is specific to erectile dysfunction.
Yes, but every time they go in, they ask you if you smoke. Every time you go in, they take your weight and check you.
You're not helping. Do you exercise regularly? How much? How often? Do you have a neurological disease or sickle cell disease? Are you taking any medications, prescription or over the counter? Has it worsened since started taking medications? What effect is it having on your relationship, your self-esteem? How long? Do you have erectile dysfunction sometimes or all the time? Have you ever had psychologically stressful sexual experiences? Ooh. Are you less interested in sex? Are you having difficulty in achieving an erection or sustaining it? That may be the difference between erectile dysfunction and impotence.
I don't know. What all I'm saying is this is a complicated situation. Here's what we're dealing with, and there's And as men, we're terrible about dealing with, severe health issues that are kind of in our face, let alone these ones that are kind of hidden in the cracks and crevices of our lives, hidden behind closed doors. And I think maybe the discussion we should be having is less about, okay, having a discussion with men on how to talk to your doctors about this is probably a good idea. But first things we got.
Well, I was trying to demystify it.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're so mystified such as by it as we are mortified by having to have the discussion. It's not so much mystified by it. We have mystifying discussions all the time. I think it's just more, it's kind of humiliating. You have to go and talk to somebody that you can't, it's the one thing you're supposed to do as a man, as a species. It's kind of your one job. Well, you've got two jobs, right? You're supposed to die for your tribe, and you're supposed to procreate. Women are supposed to survive for their tribe and procreate. That's fundamentally what we exist. It's, on the fundamental level. Get all down to the basis level of, animal existence. And it's a failure for that. It's a failure of that. So it hits us at a core level. And there's, whether it should or not is a different question. The fact is, it does. And so we don't like talking about these things. We don't like talking about these private things in our personal lives, despite what people think. We don't go around. Most men don't go around to the bars and talk about their sex lives. There's a handful that do, and they're really annoying even to the rest of us. So, but most of us don't. So we don't want to go to the doctor, talk about something that's uncomfortable, that is insanely complicated, that we don't have any idea what is interacts with what. Is our job stress really a reason? We're less stressed now than we were 5 years ago. Why now? Who wants to have that discussion? That's a psychologist discussion, and we don't want to have that either. Most of us.
Well, that's part of one of the ways to treat erectile dysfunction it is suggested that go into counseling to deal with all of these issues.
Yeah, well, even if it's a purely physical medical issue, counseling to kind of deal with the psychological impact of that medical issue, and your marriage counseling. If you're a strained marriage anyway, then this could make your strained marriage even worse. So a marriage counselor wouldn't even hurt. A relationship counselor, however you want to frame it, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Because like anything else, when you have problems, sometimes you go to professionals for solutions, right? If you're not a professional plumber and you've got a serious plumbing issue, you call the plumber. You have them come fix it. If you
right,
you're
having problems with your plumbing, go to the doctor.
Well, it's the same thing if we're having. Yeah, I know. But you're facing a real man's resistance here. We don't want to have this discussion.
Yes, I know.
We don't like to have this discussion. I can't sit here and say, sure, go, but because we're not going to want to.
I understand that.
But we're not going to want to. And so it's just is the way it is. But we have to, part of the reason we do this, part of the reason we have this discussion is so that if we can have this discussion publicly and in front of our tens of fans.
Exactly.
Then, maybe someone else can have this discussion privately with their doctor or with their spouse or with their therapist. And once you can start having that discussion one place, if you can start that discussion with your doctor or you can start that discussion with your spouse, then it becomes easier to have that discussion with the other one. Right? So start wherever you're most comfortable starting. If you're most comfortable starting with your spouse, your therapist, or your doctor, start with that one. And then from there, you can move on to the next, your highest priority on the list. Because once you become practiced at having the discussion.
It's that first step.
Yeah, it's always the hardest. Breaking that momentum, breaking inertia always takes the most energy. Like a car going from 0 to 1, it uses the most energy. It simply does. Because you have to break inertia.
Can we talk about the
Yeah.
treatments? Because
Yeah.
I feel that we've given a lot of problems, but we haven't given any solutions.
Yeah, we got 5-6 minutes left. Perfect time.
Okay, make healthy lifestyle changes. Sorry, you're going to have to, drinking excessive amounts of alcohol, smoking, taking illegal drugs, and living a sedentary life can increase impotence. Increase impotence in both short and long-term scenarios.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you're honest with your doctor, or else they can't help you.
Yeah.
Enroll in counseling. 2 of the main causes of erectile dysfunction are emotional or psychological issues. Anxiety and stress disrupt your natural hormone cycle and create sexual dysfunction.
Yeah, and if you're living in fight or flight, right? If you're living in the kind of a flight or flight mode, how are you supposed to operate normally? So it makes complete sense that, dealing with your emotional state, your body works better when you're in a proper emotional state, when you're not in fight or flight, when you're not always stressed. Your body simply functions better. It simply does. All aspects of it. You think better, you heal better, you can run better. It's just, it all is. So dealing with your physical and, dealing with your emotional state is one way to start dealing with your physical state. So, okay.
Consider current medication intake. You're going to have to review those with your doctor.
Yeah.
Sometimes a new medication or changing doses will do that.
Well, hey, and your reaction to medication can change over time, especially if you're a woman. And I know we're mainly focusing on men here, but especially if you're a woman and you're around that time of change, the hormones are changing. And I know it's a slightly different discussion, but men go through menopause too. We have hormones. Our hormones just don't change as quickly. They just change slower over time. But that hormone change, that same period, medication that used to be fine might not no longer be fine because your base chemical has changed over the last couple of years. So there's always that option. So you always have to. Even if you haven't changed medication, it still may be a medication issue because you may have changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, vacuum devices. Okay, there's a negative stigma associated. Apparently, they've been around for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Though, and
for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Basically, you enlarge you draw the blood into the penis, and then you use a tension ring in place to hold the blood. That sounds painful.
Yeah, hey, I suppose if you've got a high sex drive and can't perform, you have to find options. But I said, like there are options, right? You don't have to. There's our options.
And then, of course, there's oral medications, Viagra, Adacirca,
Yeah, Viagra and
Cialis,
the various
Levotril, Ciaxin, and Stendra.
Yes, but also remember that these things have side effects that are potential side effects. So you have to make your decisions about what your important levels are, what's important to you. Adding medications to your medication mix. I'm always skeptical, just from a fundamental point of view.
And then, of course, we have natural remedies, ginseng, acupuncture. Talk to your doctor first.
Yeah, if it becomes a long-term problem, and we're not talking about something that maybe lasts a couple of weeks when you're really stressed out, right? Or something of that nature. We're talking about something that's kind of dragged on, and it's actually started to affect your mental state and your relationship, and it becomes something that has to be dealt with one way or the other, right? Because if you don't deal with it, then your relationship's going to suffer, and that's fundamentally what we deal with here is the human relationship. It's your relationships are going to suffer if you don't at least acknowledge these things and deal with them. Maybe there's nothing you can do. Maybe there's no medical solution for you, but you can still deal with it. You can still be open and honest and communications with your partners, and you can find a way through. And also remember, just because something is the way it is now doesn't mean it's the way it's always going to be. Things change. Just because something changed bad for the worse doesn't mean it won't change for the better later on. Who knows? Maybe I'll hit my head next month and everything's kind of not saying it's not suggesting it, but hey, if a bang on the head can change things in one direction, an accident can change things in another. Life isn't hard coded. These things are ever evolving, and it's our ever evolving relationships with ourselves, with our with those we love, with those around us, with our communities. That's what's important in our lives. And being connected with your partner, yourself, and those people in your lives that are there to help you through your troubles. Be it your doctor, your therapist. We've gone through the list 100 times. I'm not going to do it again. But all those people like us, your favorite podcasters, anything that finds you some moment of relief, moment of joy, can help make your life better. And so if you'd like to talk to us, we reach out to us. You can send us a love. God, I keep calling them love. I might as well just call them love letters because apparently I'm going to continue to call them love letters. If you want to send us love letters, send them to love@latenightLove.us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to answer and talk about them on the air. We can even bring you on if you want to be a guest and have you on.
Absolutely.
We don't have to turn your camera on. You can, come on. You can come on in just on voice form. Also, you can find all the information, all our the links, our show notes. You can find them at latenightLove.us. And from me and Lubby, we want to thank you for being with us tonight. We want to thank you for spreading love and joy to the world. And with that, good night. And please remember to love everybody.
Good night.